Our guest today is a true Louisiana original, a singer, songwriter, storyteller, and a champion of the Americana sound. From the heart of Ruston, Louisiana, our guest has spent decades writing, performing, and sharing his love of music with audiences around the South. He shared the stage with icons like Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard, released heartfelt albums like Fat Man, and co-hosts the long-running show The Roadhouse on KXKZ 107.5, a show that celebrates the very best in Americana and roots music. But maybe what stands out most is his dedication to mentoring young musicians and giving back to the next generation of Louisiana artists. We're honored to have him with us tonight. Please welcome Mr. Monty Russell.
Hey, how are you doing, sir?
How are you, brother?
I'm doing fantastic. It's great to see you.
Oh, man.
That was very, very, very kind of you. I kept listening and thinking, so who's the big guest going to be?
Oh, man, I could have made it longer even. How are you, man?
So good to see you again.
You in Ruston tonight?
I'm in Ruston tonight.
Okay. Yeah, you go back and forth to Memphis a lot, right?
Yeah, I've got a place in Memphis. It kind of helps me, get around, get up to Nashville and over to Muscle Shoals, and I'm doing a good bit in Memphis as well. Then when I'm down here, gets me places down here. So
yeah, staying busy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, let's dive in, man. You're from Ruston, Louisiana. Tell us a little bit. Well, you're from that area, I guess.
From Union Parish in a place called Hale. You know where Hale is?
I've been through it. I've been through it a few times. I don't know where it is on the map.
It's on the Washita River up in Union Parish. It's you got to be going there to get there. So.
Okay, yeah. If you're going through hell, that's right. Well, tell us about how, not necessarily as music, but as a person. How did growing up in a little small town like that kind of shape you as a person?
Well, I'm fortunate, as far as playing music, that I had a grandfather whose name is Leon Russell, and it's not Leon Russell that we all know about, the bearded Leon Russell. Even a couple times in some pretty good newspaper articles and reviews, I've been identified as his grandson. I'm not his grandson. My grandfather was a kind of a barrel house piano player, fiddle player, guitar player, and from the time I was old enough to hold a guitar, he had one in my hand teaching me songs, and put me on that path.
Just grew up with it.
Just grew up with it. It was always around.
So something I read before we even dive even more into music is that I was reading that, did I see that you have like 5 or 6 grandchildren now?
I have 10 grandchildren now.
10 grandchildren. So let's I'm going to give you a minute to brag on the kids and talk about family a minute.
Grandchild, had my 10th grandchild on the 3rd of June. The day Billy Joe McAllister jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge. So
10 grandchildren. I lost you for a minute.
Grandchild was born 3rd of June.
3rd of June. Okay. So, man, 10 of them.
Oldest one drums with me quite frequently, and was just on a national tour with his compadres, who are all fabulous musicians from North Louisiana. Braden Watt, my grandson's Aiden Johnson, and his compadres Evan Griffin and Braden Watts are killer pickers and singers and songwriters, and it's they've been out on a national tour with Brian Martin for the last couple of months, and we're on all day.
Wow. Do any of your other grandchildren play?
They all play something or taking lessons, or they all dabble in it, but he's the most serious. My grandson Aiden is the most serious. He great sound reinforcement, great audio engineer for recording, great, drummer, guitar player. He's in it all. So very proud of him.
One of those guys who's do it all. I don't know why you're cutting out just a little bit on me. I don't know. Is your hand over that by any chance?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Don't think so.
Okay, I can hear you clear, and then you'll cut out just a tad.
Is that better?
Maybe so. It's
Okay.
like I can hear you for a minute, and then you'll cut out for a minute.
Okay.
So what about you? You're talking about the grandkids starting. What age did you start playing music?
I started playing about 8 years old, professionally, or not professionally, but in publicly, and not too long after that, professionally for money. But my grandfather would take a guitar and he would tune it in open G, and then give me a knife blade and set it in my lap, and he taught me how to change chords by ear, and move that knife blade up and down that guitar, and eventually, some more formal lessons and things like that, and just continue to steal licks from anybody else I could steal them from.
So more formal than playing with a knife blade.
Yeah, more formal than playing with a knife blade. And then my grandfather was had a long history of back into the 40s of juke joints and dance halls and barn dances and things like that, and a lot of church gigs, and but by the time I came along, he and all of his friends would almost meet every Friday night and have like a living room party, and I would join that every Friday night. So
how old were you then?
8 to 10, somewhere thereabouts.
Yeah.
All through my high school years, and it was a but then I guess in 12, 13 years old, I started playing in bluegrass bands and gospel quartets and anything anybody let me get involved in.
So obviously you had some family members, your grandfather.
Oh yeah, my aunt. One of my aunts was a great barrel house piano player. She had moved down to Baton Rouge, from Union Parish, and lived most of her life in Baton Rouge. But she was always a big influence on me learning how to participate by playing by ear, without or participating with other musicians. So.
Did you ever formally learn how to read or anything, like read music?
Yeah, man, I took, I'm ashamed of myself. I took a good 10 or 12 years of piano lessons and can't remember a lick. But I can read because of that, and a lot of formal choir training, vocal instruction to read, and it helps me now. I really probably couldn't pick up a piece and play it, but I could study it to know how to play it. But I couldn't sight read it. But it's also very helpful in the studio, to participate in that fast-paced lingo that studio players throw out at you. So.
Oh yeah, and it is fast-paced.
It is fast.
No, can't waste a lot of room on the studio.
No,
a lot of time. It's expensive time.
Sure.
So that was some of your family with some of your influences. Who were some of your outside influences, people you were listening to?
Oh man, I was thinking about this the other day, the first albums, kind of bought, and I couldn't remember what the first thing I bought was, but I do remember like a Jimmy Rogers album, like Singing Brakeman, and I remember, thrown in with that at the same time a Skinner record, Haggard, some Haggard records, a Kiss record, of course, and then Boston, and so we were just slinging it all together, but I remember when I had an epiphany when I realized that Skinner was playing Merle Haggard, covering Merle Haggard and J.J. Cale and all these things I thought were, I started realizing that honky tonk is honky tonk, It's all honky tonk.
It all. If you go back
Mm-hmm.
far enough, and if you listen
Yeah.
close enough, and you know what you're listening for, there's
Sure.
it all kind of
all
comes
the
from the same
blues.
places. That's right. Yeah. Just a little different spin on it. One of the things we were talking about with some of the guys from up in North Louisiana, and really Louisiana is so talented, got so much talent in general.
Sure.
But your area up there, going back for,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really decades, you could go all the way back to like the hayride up there, and as far as all the way across up there. Who were some guys from that region? Did you have some guys back then that were playing that you kind of looked up to from that region?
Yeah, and the person that comes to mind more than anybody, kind of ever. Of course, my grandfather and all his compadres that played, but people that I was seeing out playing once, kind of got in high school. Kenny Bill Stinson from the Downsville area, and I don't know if you're familiar with Kenny, but Kenny had been off to play with Rodney Crowell and Charlie Rich and Sam Myers, and he'd had quite a career as a sideman, and so I remember when he was apparently on the road, I think, with Rodney Crowell, and just decided one day, I'm tired of being on the road, I'm going home. And I think I got to see one of his first performances when he came back to North Louisiana. And it was at the Peach Festival in Ruston and Railroad Park, and I saw him walk out and play the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. And I'm going like, who the hell is this guy? And and he's from here, he lives here. And I think that was kind of the dawning of how rich the talent pool was here. And then getting to know him. Then another, not very long after that, I saw him open for Bob Dylan at the Monroe Civic Center Theater, and he walked out before Dylan with a 12-string guitar and laid down on every Delta blues song I've ever heard anybody do, as best I've heard anybody ever do them. And when he finished, he flipped his pick up into the air and he caught it in his shirt pocket and walked off and away. I thought, that is the coolest guy I've ever seen in my life. And then to get to play with him and hear road stories from him, he's got some fabulous stories about being with Charlie Rich and in Europe and all the other folks he played with. He played piano as well as Jerry Lee. So Jerry Lee often recognized him as a piano player, and he just was just one of those guys who if you're an artist, you damn sure didn't want that guy opening for you. It was that hard of an act to follow. But playing with him, I learned so much from him, and especially about he came. I love people who make their mark because they're original, and they don't care if you like them or not, right? He was kind of that guy. He walked out with this cocky confidence and laid it out there for you, and there it was. If you didn't like it, he really didn't care. But 99% of the time, everybody liked it. So.
Speaking of Jerry Lee, that kind of tends to be a thing from Louisiana artists. They're kind of like,
sure,
yeah.
Like Kenny carried a lot of the attitude with that Jerry Lee had. That's one of the things too. A story growing up from my grandfather. My grandfather, despite in addition to playing music all the time, his one of his retirement jobs, he was a janitor in the school where I worked at. So I got to hang with him during school times, but. My dad in the 8th grade and my grandfather, was working at the school during that period of time. When Jerry Lee Lewis moved to West Sterlington, outside of Sterlington, Louisiana, and was going to school in Union Parish at Linville High School. Okay, so my dad had all these stories. I think he said they were all about the 8th grade, and that they had bachelor cooking class that my aunt taught. And the home ec building had a grand piano. They would lose Jerry Lee, but they always knew where to find him. He'd be down banging on the piano. And then the other great story I heard my dad say, they had bachelor cooking together, and Jerry Lee refused to wash dishes. He paid And Dad said at that point in time he was already making money playing in honky tonks, and that he paid somebody to wash his hands and said, "These hands do not wash dishes. These hands do not go underwater." So
Good. His widow, Miss Judah, she lives here in Natchez, where I'm at, and me and her we become buddies. I actually just had an interview with her yesterday, and
that's so cool.
Yeah, so we'll have to bring you over and hang and
share. What a character to call our own.
I'll bring you over, man, and let her tell the stories.
She's got a lot
of them. Before, what do you think it is just about Louisiana? Because there's also been a lot of people who you've seen come up since you've started this, that you've seen come up. What do you think it is that makes so much talent here?
I don't know. It's like when I started playing, and then I started realizing, I kind of everybody gets into this a certain way, and I got into it kind of gospel first. Had some gospel quartets with some friends that are still play, and then the jamboree circuit was so strong, around from some version of the hayride to the Dixie Jamboree in Ruston to the Ward 5 Jamboree. Every region had, and it also went out further. You had Johnny High in Dallas, places like that. You had, and then on the, like in the honky tonk world, you had places like Rio Palmyra over in Longview where you could go play for 5 nights in a row. You go over and stay and play 5 nights in a row. And even Monroe, Monroe, when I was just kind of starting to play, was still kind of like a little Vegas. It was a lot of great clubs, and musicians bands particularly could play 4 or 5 nights a week, back then. And there were all these legendary players. I mentioned Kenny Bill, but prior to Kenny Bill, you were always running into somebody who was a phenomenal player. And some of them, fortunately, some of them just maybe within my age group, all about 10 years, 12 years older than me. Somebody who, made me feel like a king as a drummer here, Mark Lane Smith. Mark Lane's, way back to in high school being in the All-American Rose Bowl band to the top drummer in Europe for 10 years. He broke ground with Christian music in a rock band called East of Eden, and he had been off playing, and everybody knew of his talent in Nashville and how many people he was teaching drumming lessons to, and things like that, and what all he'd played on. And then all of a sudden he decided he was done in Nashville and came back, and I was able to get him in my band. And I thought, wow, man, I got fortunate to have some other guys. I got in Richard McLean and General Keith Patterson, and some guys that had been off playing different places and had experience. And I got lucky and hooked up with those guys. And I felt like I was on top of the world because of a world-class band at home. So.
There's a lot of those guys that went out on the road, man. Like we talked about before we came on, Mr. Gene King. I mean, he was out with Jody Miller on the road.
Yeah. So Mark is the drummer I was talking about that went out with Gene King, and they, I think it was a girl named Jody
Miller.
Jody Miller that they backed in California, and that had been Mark's first road gig. But he said they'd fly out and play 2 or 3 nights for her, and next night be back at the VFW Hall in Monroe. So.
And I have a cousin, Tommy Riles. He's from Wisner, that area.
Sure. I know Tommy Riles.
Okay, well, Tommy played with Mo Band. I mean, he played on the road forever. Yeah. His most recent was with Mo Bandy, and
cool.
But there's just so many guys up in that area that
there were so many guys around here. Lon Wilson and Michael Rhodes. Who wound up being the most recorded bass player in history, and there were guys like that, and that didn't even touch the guys, that I was going to see in Shreveport, like Bruce and Buddy Follett, and just a wealth of people who A lot of them left over from the golden era of the hayride. There were a lot of people that made Shreveport their home after the hayride. Somebody very influential on me back then was Maggie Warwick, who was a songwriter. The most, she at some point in time owned the rights to the hayride, and but after hanging out with her, finding out some of her songs were the most being played BMI songs in the history of music. And just down home people that let you into their world. And, I can remember being just high school and Maggie taking me to a lunch. And also Jimmy Ball from Ruston, who been a Louisiana hayride star, and he and Merle Kilgore had run around together. So I remember being young and being at a dinner, finding myself at a dinner at the Petroleum Club in Shreveport with Merle Kilgore and Nancy Jones and Ronnie Tutt that played with Elvis, and just a plethora of folks that were huge world musicians, but we're very down home, in Shreveport.
Yeah. And I'm about to dive into your stuff here in a second,
Yeah.
but before we do that, I read that you were, and you told me this a while back, but I read it again, like I forgot about that. But you were a police officer for years, right?
20 years to the minute. The minute I got 20 years, I retired. But I'd been most of the time in Ruston, but for a good period of time also in Atlanta, Georgia, and. It was something I kind of accidentally got into, and I liked it and kind of stuck with it. And for the first 10 years I did it, they kind of frowned on honky tonk playing. And after about 10 years of doing it, I was like, you know what, I'm going to test this out. So at the second 10 years, I worked at the police department. I was playing all over the country. There were lots of times I was getting in a police car after a shift and driving somewhere like Fayetteville, playing a show, and had a road manager drive me home, to put on a uniform and go back to do it again, and I did that for a long time, especially my Texas days. I spent, so much time in Texas and just road dogging it back and forth.
Yeah. Well, I guess falling into police work's better than falling in on the other side of it.
Yeah, it was probably better than being in jail, but
20 years on that side is better than the other side.
Yeah.
That
it's kind of funny now because I've been retired from the police department. I retired at 40, so I've been retired 20 years, and there's a whole legion of people who have no idea that I, was a policeman or had any other other thing I've ever done. But I mean, I've done this since since I was like 8. Those other jobs, I've done some teaching and I've done some kind of professoring, and that kind of thing. But all those are just side hustles to music. So
yeah, you did the opposite.
I did the opposite.
Side hustle with music. You side hustle on it.
Right.
What age did you?
I missed that part that says you should get out and do something that pays really well and do this on the side. I missed that.
I bet you're happier than a lot of people, though.
Oh, I'm very happy. Yes, very happy to do what I do. It's very rewarding, and it's at this point in time, it's like I've met so many people, and in different, but I have to put them in like different categories. I met you when I was playing in Texas all the time, or I met you when I was back and forth to Nashville. Kind of have to put people in categories. How do I know you? Or not a couple of weeks ago, even there were 3 or 4 young people that all got called by labels or brought in by labels to talk about deals and that kind of thing, and they all discovered, one particular executive said, "This is the 4th time I've talked to somebody this week that has a project with Monty Russell. Who the hell is that?" So
yeah.
So that's a good feeling, that there's the impact of younger folks, that are killing it, out there.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it, man. And I want to talk about that in a few minutes too. But I'm curious, as what age did you start writing? Did you think?
What age did I start writing? Probably about I probably started writing about 12 or 13, but probably didn't write anything that I still play or recorded until I was even listening probably till I was 25. And then even 30 before I really felt comfortable as a songwriter. I was listening to a cassette, no less, a cassette that was recorded at a studio that used to sit where a casino sits now in Bossier, Red River Studio, that I had recorded. And it was really cool because I was in the studio at the same time with the Cox family, and they were putting out some of their first songs, and um, pre them hooking up with Alison Krauss,
Yeah.
her recording all their songs. But the Sidney Cox, I remember us being in that same studio making cassettes at the same time. And I was listening to my somebody came out and said, your cassette's not on the internet anywhere, but I dug it up and I was like, I thought I had that buried so nobody could dig that up. So I had to. He sent it to me, and I had to listen to some of the songs last week, and some of them I've worked on further and re-released them, and some I listened. I was like, well, I need to probably revamp that and do that again. When you're younger and you don't know what to do, you do whatever you can do, whatever you have money to do, and whatever you can do to get it out there. So that cassette that my friend had dug up the other day. It was done kind of on a limited budget, but I found one guy who was a genius, and he played everything on it, and
Got it for cheap because he played everything.
he played everything, and he was, and his last name was Wells. He was Talmadge Wells' brother, who was a great player from Monroe, and he, with that, I go back to that cassette. I wouldn't want people to listen to it to judge my music by it, but while everybody else was waiting in line, standing in line to play the Bluebird Cafe, they accepted that cassette. They didn't make me audition or anything. Somebody heard that and like moved to the front of the line. So it was well worth back then recording it and getting it out. And some of those songs have been cut by other people, and some I still play every day. So,
do you remember the first song you ever wrote? Do you remember what that was about?
yes, I do. I do remember one of the songs I wrote, which I probably will revamp. And it was like I told you, one of my first. I was fascinated with Jimmy Rogers, and I was fascinated with Jimmy Rogers. And when I found out that a lot of Jimmy Rogers songs had Louis Armstrong on them, and Louis Armstrong's wife Lil playing piano. And this is 1927 when people were of different races were forbidden from playing music together. And there's Jimmy Rogers over in the heart of Mississippi, hooking up with Louis Armstrong from the heart of Louisiana, and putting out these blues records together. And I can remember I still play every night. I play Blue Yodel number 9, which is Standing on the Corner. And I wanted to write a Jimmy Rogers song called something like Standing on the Corner. And at that point in time in Ruston, they had removed the Rock Island Railroad. And so still to this day in Ruston, there's a walking path and jogging path and that kind of thing that follows the Rock Island line. And so I wrote a Jimmy Rogers song called The Rock Island Line Don't Run Through Ruston Anymore. So that was the first thing wrote and then played out. So.
Yeah, nice, man. How would you've got a really cool sound, and how would you describe your sound as to someone who's never heard you?
Well, it was funny when I'd walk into a new club, and inevitably, anytime you walk into a new club, somebody says, "Hey, what kind of music do you play?" And so I started, something to break the ice. I would say I play a combination of country and rap. I call it crap, and people would laugh. But these cases I just kind of say honky tonk, because to me that is, like I said before, I noticed early on the connection of, Skinner and J.J. Cale and Clapton and J.J. Cale and, um, you know, um, the things I was hearing, I was a giant Billy Joe Shaver fan, and long before, and I got to meet him and be friends with him, for a number of years, and had him play for the clubs I booked and things like that. But I was a giant Shaver fan, and then I found where the Allman Brothers had covered "Sweet Mama" by Billy Joe Shaver, and then so kind of put two and two together. All that's honky tonk. It's all blues, and it's all honky tonk. I could hear that same Jimmy. Well, of course, Skinner cut Jimmy Rogers songs, and as did the Allman Brothers covered those songs, and so I just found that I love that connection, and that's because that's kind of, I just say honky tonk now. So it's because
Hey,
some country, some blues, some rock, gospel.
and I like how you put your own spin on them, man. I like
Yeah,
that.
thank you very much.
You've got your own sound for sure.
I appreciate
Um, you've had some projects. Let's see, I think I read 4 albums, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah, I have
Over the
myself.
years,
Mm-hmm.
and some singles.
And
Which one of those kind of stand out to you?
I'm really good about getting an album out every 10 years. It's great for my career.
You know Rick Huckabee?
And I'm sitting here with probably 40 songs in a can,
Yeah.
That every time I go produce somebody else, I'll cut 2 or 3 songs, and then I'll go, one day I'm going to do something with these songs, or I'm going to put these out at some point in time. Or, sometimes people come along that don't have songs for the studio, and I was like, hey, let me pitch you this one, I did 10, 12 years ago, and it's just been sitting here, and so I've made a goal, here to try to put out more stuff that I already have done, as well as continuing to, put some new stuff out. So
yeah, but that joke reminded me of do you know Rick Huckabee?
Yeah, sure.
So Rick always tells the joke. He says, "I put out an album about every 10 years, whether the world needs it or not."
Whether they need it or not. That's right.
You shared the stage with some guys, man. You played some cool shows and shared the stage with some name guys. Do you have any of those shows or those memories that really stand out to you?
Well, of course, playing with Willie Nelson is something I treasure, and getting to golf with him also, and to smoke with Willie,
I was trying to think if I was going to ask or not.
Yeah, and hopefully the statute of limitations. I was a police officer at the time, and Willie's like, "Do you want to toke off of this?" And I'm like, "I'm a police officer." He goes, "I'm not going to tell anybody." Yeah. And so I'm thinking, well, that's like Geronimo offering a peace pipe, right? Who's going to turn that down?
You kind of have to, don't you?
But just a series of things I did with Willie, out around Texas, and I just loved his spirit, and had been watching him play already, for 20 years or so when I met him. He was his 70th birthday party, and he invited me to the Ryman. He played Rabs in Ruston, which I was booking the night before, and the next night he just like last minute he's like, "My birthday party's tomorrow. Jump on somebody's bus," So I jumped on a crew bus and and went to the Ryman for the birthday party, and met everybody in the world. So of course that moment with him, which is millions of people have had that moment with him because he's that outgoing of a person. But I wouldn't take anything for that. I was telling somebody yesterday about being at a show in Austin when and of course when he played Austin, everybody in the world came out. Everybody Austin famous came out, and so he broke a string, which was apparently rare, and the tuning guy, whose name was Tuning Tom, ran off the stage and handed me Trigger. He said, "Here, hold this while I find a string." And I thought, wow, I'm holding Trigger. This is going to be in the Smithsonian. And everybody that was backstage ran over and put their hand on it like it was the Holy Grail or something. It was like
I would have to, yeah.
So and later that week I went to the Ryman with them, and there were like 3,000 or 4,000 people out in the alley where his bus was, and the birthday party was Tootsie's. And I walked outside, and I'm like, dang, look at all these people trying to get in the show. And these 3,000 or 4,000 people were not even had tickets. They were just, crammed in the alley to try to get a glimpse of him. And when he walked off, I swear, I recognized the power, his power, because it looked like Jesus, like walking through the crowd. He was touching people, and and the crowd was partying. It was just a very spiritual moment that I learned the religion of Willie right there. But
Right outside the church of country music.
But I've been fortunate enough to play with some fun people. Billy Joe Shaver was always really fun, and to play with Haggard a couple times was really play with Haggard several times, and a lot of other people and I kind of came up with some guys like Ragweed and Pat Green and all those guys, and so played a lot of shows with them. I played a lot of shows with Robert Keane, and so everything in between. But I think probably one of my most memorable shows was at the Varsity with John Popper, for Blues Traveler, which they invited us to come to the Varsity. I really didn't think we fit, and then I realized I was wrong. That hippie crowd loved the country music that we were doing. And I looked up on John Popper was on stage playing the harmonica behind us. And then for a couple, for probably 10 years, every time he came south, he called us to open. He goes, "Y'all are the loudest, raunchiest two-piece." We were playing as a two-piece, and he's like, "Y'all are the loudest, raunchiest two-piece I can get." And so he would call and ask for us to come, to open these shows for about 10 years. And so that was some of my favorites. But and then a lot, just a lot of people in between that, and just and I'll see people today, and it's always a joke. I'll see people today and say, and somebody will say, "We've met before." And I'm like, "Yeah, we met before. I don't know where, somewhere in that hazy fog that happens after shows. We've met, but I don't know where or when." So
Toby Keith and Scotty Emmerich wrote a song called "I'll Never Smoke Weed with Willie Again." Are you familiar with that?
I'm familiar with that, and it's my understanding that some of that came out of that particular birthday night at the Ryman.
I was going to ask you, is that song true?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's even better that song came out of it.
Right.
Tell us about the Roadhouse radio show. Are you still doing that?
Man, the Roadhouse radio show, I had been out. Yeah, I'm still doing it. It started in 2000, the beginning of 2001. So 26 will be our 25th year. Doing it every Monday night. Most of the time we do it live. We record it sometimes, or I'll phone it in from the road sometimes. But people were getting radio stations around here were I guess it was called the New Texas Movement at that time. It's 25 years old now, but that because to me the Texas movement involved Jerry Jeff and Billy Joe and all those guys. So that was the Texas movement to me. But this was the Pat Greens and the Ragweeds and Jason Boland, all those guys were coming out and putting out stuff as kids. They were all kids, and so the radio stations were being, by the consultants, were saying this is the hot thing, so you need to start a specialty show. And so they had their own chart over in Texas, and it was just like any other radio thing. By the time it got over to us, it was almost a they had their favorites, and they also had, if you ran ads in the magazine, it was a typical business, turned out to be a typical business thing. But they started calling me, asking me through the station, "You ever heard this?" "Yeah, I played with that guy last week in Fort Worth," or "Yeah, I know that guy from the road." And so they brought me on as a kind of a color guy to basically talk about these guys or get them to come on the show and that kind of thing. And then that happened about the same time Rab opened Rab Steakhouse, and he started saying, "What kind of music can we bring in here?" And so just kind of fell into both those things. And the radio station's probably been the best thing for a career, for the radio show, because every Monday night I could tell them where I was playing, and I'd tell them what I was doing and play my own music.
That's right.
If I was producing something, I could play that music to test it out. So
you've been having free advertising for 25 years.
Really, I don't get paid I get paid okay, but you know, to not really the kind of pay you would hang around for Monday night. But I always, you know, when I work with young people now, you can't buy that, right? You can't, you know, all those years of advertising. And still to this day, you know, I've been doing it 25 years. Still to this day, I'll be sitting on a bar stool somewhere, and somebody will say, "What's your name?" And I'll give them my name. And they're like, "Well, I've been listening to you for 10 years, you know, on the radio. Never met you, you know." So, you know, that's the value of, that's the value of having something like that available to you. You know, I've gotten my weight in gold from that. You know, and from booking. You know, when I got into doing shows, you know, I've done probably thousands of shows where I was the promoter on these shows, or you know, fairs, festivals, you know, giant festivals, just, you know, any, you know, for a long time, people, you know, anytime somebody wanted to do an event in North Louisiana would, you know, get a call, you know, so both
For
those things
better or
they were
yeah.
invaluable, you know, that they were invaluable to, you know,
Yeah.
and I met some people who I consider, you know, the top of the business, you know, now one in particular, you know, long-term, you know, relationship with Gary Allen because of him being young and coming to Rabs to play, you know, and
I seen him at Rabs. Yeah.
Rabs. Okay. So, you know, and
Probably did that show.
I had to really like, I'd have to come, you know, I would be in Nashville and run into new people, and I would have to like literally like beg, you know, the clubs to like, hey, you know, you're going to miss out if you don't get this guy, you know, and there are a lot of them, you know, a lot of guys like that we brought there the first time, and then for 10, 15 years, they sold out shows for us and made us, you know, made us money in good crowds. You know, Robert Keane was like that, you know. I felt like sometimes I was the only guy in this area that was listening to what was going on across the border, you know, and the
Yeah.
Robert Keens, and another one was Charlie Robinson. He was fabulous, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, of course, nobody here had heard of him, but and Pat Green the same way. Nobody had heard of Pat, and
I seen Pat up there at
yeah,
Rabs.
yeah, yeah, and so when I booked Pat for the first time, some Sigma News called me, and they're like, "Is this Pat Green guy the same guy we saw at a frat party in, you know, Del Rio?" You know, and I'm like, "The same guy," you know, and so you know, the first time there was a couple hundred, then there was 500, then there was 2,000, and you know, it just grew like that. Just, you know, and a lot of, you know, a lot of other artists, you know, that were in the Southeast, like Charlie Mars and um, you know, the Kudzu Kings and hippie bands. We had a lot of hippie bands, you know,
Yeah.
that I really enjoyed, and still friends with. You know, I was laughing. One of my favorite people I ever ran into was Jimbo Mathis. I don't know if you're, you know, Jimbo was in the Squirrel Nut Zippers, and just a fabulous producer. And several times in the last few months in Memphis, I've just bumped into him on the street when we were all out drinking, you know, and you know, so, and you know, and Luther and Cody Dickinson, guys like that were coming to play Rabs, and you know, run into them, you know, up there. So just having fun in a lot of different places, you know. And you know, I was really you know, tickled, you know, kind of like that thing we talked about a while ago, where, you know, several kids went to the same record executive and they all had done projects with me. Was you know, I got a call one night from a bar in Nashville and said, "I hear you're on your way to Nashville. There's 13 people here at this bar having a shot together, and we don't know each other, but everyone has played for you or played with you." So that's cool, pretty fun thing. You know, pretty
Don't
cool.
do the shot yet. I'm on my way.
Yeah, all right.
All right, go ahead and do that one, but I'll be there to do the second.
I got there, you know, being a musician, you really don't know what liquor costs. You know, everybody's always giving you liquor. You know, so I
That's right.
rolled into town, and I was like, you know, tequila shots for, you know, my 11 friends here. And the bartender said, "Well, you know, those are 20 a piece." I'm like, "Draft beer for all my friends."
Yeah, no doubt. It'll get you. Oh man. Yeah, I see we're getting close to an hour, man. So I don't want to keep you all night, but I got
no problem, whatever.
we got I did want to ask, you know, from meeting artists, we've kind of talked about it, but you know, I've met artists in that area, and if followed you on social media for a long time, and it seems like you've made an impact on a lot of up and coming artists over the years, for many years now. So what does that mentor responsibility mean to you?
This summer, that kind of hit me with turning 60 and play as hard as we ever did. I've got some guys that travel with me now that are particularly, one guy travels with me everywhere, more or less, is a harmonica player named Dave P. Moore, and he's an original OG. He learned to play the harmonica by driving a motor van around with Johnny Shines, who was Robert Johnson's traveling partner back in the day. And so he comes by the blues, direct line to the OG blues, I would call them. And so hanging out with guys like that, we're still playing. If we show up to play, we're going to give you 100%. And but turning 60, thinking like, I can remember playing with guys when I was 25 or 30, and they were 40, and I'm going, I don't know how they're still doing this. I really didn't realize. I thought they were old men, And so now, you wonder, well, how long can I do it at this pace? I think I can do it as long as I, stay healthy. But this summer, some things like that. Some people a lot of people started coming to me. One's, the kids that were playing with me with my grandson, Braden Watts and Evan Griffith, and so I carried them out on the road and helped them any way I could. Braden's had moved to Nashville, and Braden moved to Nashville, and within a month he had two cuts on Ty Myers' new record, and was out, opening these shows for Ty Myers for 1,500, 2,000 people a night. So, and my grandsons and them are on, these national tours. I got thinking, I produced a lot of people's records, their first records, Chris Canterbury, for one, who's a staple of the Nashville,
unbelievable
songwriting or Music Row. And, I was blown away because driving through East Nashville the other day, and there was a mural of him in East Nashville. I had no idea.
Wow.
So I produced his first record, 2008 or 9, that kind of got his footing in Nashville. And, we still write together and play together regularly. Bo Atkins from Shreveport, Wade Reeves from Baton Rouge. There's a whole bunch of, I take pride in the fact there's a whole bunch of people out there that I produced records or wrote songs with that are making their living at this point. Trey Gotro, fabulous singer-songwriter from originally from Thibodaux, that lives in Ruston now. We just released a single with him and Wayne Toops together, Take My Hand. That Wayne graciously came out and played on.
Wow.
And right now, over the last summer, I started writing with a girl named Clara Ray, who I had no idea what she had going on, but she was a very literate and very proficient writer and fabulous singer. While she was in Nashville, they were trying to pigeonhole her into a top 40 type thing, but she's like soul singer. She's a retro but modern day, soul singer. And so working with her this summer, I started getting, some things like inducted into the North Louisiana Hall of Fame, which was, I won a Performer of the Year, which I was really proud of, seeing how there's so many younger and very talented, people. And I was included on a marker, like a blues trail marker, in Ruston, and I think there's plans for me to be on a couple more of those maybe. So yeah, and then all of a sudden, in any time people start talking about, they start mentioning that word mentor, but all I think that means is you just hang out with people who are likely talented. There's a lot of people that want to do this, but there's people who have the drive, the drive. They're going to do it, and they're going to, they might start a band now, but there's, there might be the local band, but there's one guy or one girl who's going to take that way further than, everybody else. So I don't really know that it's mentoring, just, I was laughing at my the way my my harmonica player Dave, kind of put it. My grandson, was hanging out with us and playing with us on the road, and he goes, "I want to try to, ask my grandfather, for more advice or how to do, how to do this." And my harmonica player Dave said, "All you do is just hang out and soak it up. You just hang out and, you know, just just enjoy being along for the ride." And that's kind of how I look at mentoring. It's not really something anybody sets out to do. It's just, it's those people rise to the surface. There's some
Yeah.
fabulous. You just read off. I was shocked that there was that much Louisiana country news. You just read off of a list of super talented people.
That's every Tuesday
Well,
night, man.
it's like, when you mentioned CJ Solar. Now he's gone up to Nashville and got himself in the business and put himself where he needed to be to get cuts and things like that. But I still look at him as a guy who was like showing up at the varsity, just eager to be around it. He was eager to be meeting people and doing things like that. And there's so many other folks from Louisiana over the years who just so I kind of shrugged that off, the mentor thing. But and people come all the time and they're like, "Can you manage me?" And I'm like, "No, I can't manage myself. I'm unmanageable, so I can't manage you." And can you show me what to do? And I was like, "I can show you everything you should not do. I can show you nothing you should do, but I can promise you I can show you what you should not do."
We'll start there. That's right.
Start there, right?
I don't know. I see Lance and Christy over here. They say, "I love Louisiana." Let me say, no, this is the other one. It says, "I bet you could drive us home with a song." But you don't have anything you don't have anywhere to set your phone, do you?
No, I don't. I'm sorry, and I don't have a guitar handy. I didn't even think about that. And
Sorry,
I told you earlier, off camera, I think when we talked today, that I had a lawnmower rodeo accident. I flipped my lawnmower and broke an L1. So I really can't at this point in time. I really can't even go carry stuff around. People have been gracious to me over the last month by bringing my gear to me and handing me a guitar. That's the only way I kind of made it through the last month.
So it was a lawnmower rodeo event. The question is, did you ride it for 8 seconds?
I did not make the 8 seconds. I've ridden that, and I've been on that lawnmower 15 years, and that's the first bad lawnmower accident bad lawnmower incident I've had.
They're saying, where can I see your songs? Spotify, right?
I've got lots of stuff on Spotify. Particularly my last album, which was called Fat Man.
R&B I listened
record.
to some of it earlier today. Yeah,
A little bit of an R&B record, honky tonk, but I have a Music Row country record that I cut. Walt Wilkins from Texas produced it, and it was I'm real proud of that record. It's kind of early 2000s country, 2006 or 7. Should be on there. A live album. That was probably the funnest thing I ever did was did a live album. My band was breaking up and everybody was moving off to do things. One guy was moving off to write a Broadway play. One guy went off and played fiddle with Alan Jackson, and everybody was moving somewhere. So the band was just so we got together at Rabs and cut a live record at Rabs, which is the thing I've sold the most of, over the years. But it was basically just turning on a recording truck while we were having a last drink together, and
that's awesome. Yeah,
you could tell there was a lot of last drinks on the recording.
It's a little loose.
A little bit loose.
But just a couple more.
Wait.
Couple more for you, man. What do you think makes a good country song, man?
Honesty and and the fact I think in analyzing, I would say, country music when I was a kid versus country music here now. When Johnny Cash sings "Mama, the water's 4 feet and rising," it's because he was going through the water 4 feet and rising. It wasn't because he made that up. You know, when Merle Haggard sings a prison song, it's because he was there. And when Waylon Jennings sang about, you know, drugs and the hellhounds that were on his trail, they were on his trail. You know, and I think in this era, you know, in that era, I think a lot of country music came from the farm and the working man and the rural areas, and you know, but you know, face it, in our, you know, in our generation up to the present, we're all kind of suburbanites. You know, we still do country stuff, and I love that. You know, that people sing about country life, but you know, those guys, you know, after hanging out with Billy Joe Shaver for so long, you know, that guy lived every one of those songs. And I was talking to him one time, and he goes, "Well, only way you can be a good songwriter is to write the honest things that happen to you." And so, you know, I went back to him. He had written this song about he and his son Eddie, who, you know, OD'd eventually, how the hard times they were having when they were both addicted, and that they were both out in the street puking, and they were all calling each other names about, you know, Billy Joe's divorce. And by the way, he'd been married to the same woman 5 times, 5 different times. And, you know, and you know, this song was so brutally honest. I'm like, I know you say we're supposed to write honest songs, but I don't think I'd have been that honest. I bring myself to tell that, you know, and
maybe dial it back a tad.
right. I think, you know,
You have
so
to be honest, but not that honest.
yeah, I think that's, you know, I think that's the key now is you know, you write about what you know. I'd say that's the same thing with if you're writing a novel or a movie or anything else, you know. In some of the other writing I've dabbled in, like, you know, plays and you know, short stories and things like that. Anytime I sit down and try to write about some exotic location, I'm like, I don't know anything about Europe, or you know, I know about muddy Delta, you know, and
Yeah.
bayous, and you know, and Scotch Irish white trash people, you know, redneck. Yeah,
That's right.
I think you have to write about what you know,
Yeah,
and I think you'll see
I think that's
anybody,
fair.
any of those guys that were successful. You know, yeah, I spent a lot of time lately in Muscle Shoals, and you know, one of the funnest things is getting to write in Rick Hall's office, you know, from time to time, and seeing these letters and things he'd written to people, and seeing people like, uh, you know, Clarence Carr, or we were all in there talking about the song Patches. Patches, I'm depending on you, son, to pull the family through. That was Rick Hall, you know, wrote that song because his father had died and turned to him on his deathbed and said, "Son, it's up to you now," you know. And you know, so you just can't make up that kind of honesty. You know,
Yeah.
you can't you know, unless you live that. And I do think, you know, now we you know, when plus we have all these new formulas for how you're supposed to get famous, or how you're supposed to get
Yeah.
known. And you know,
That's the right word too. Formula.
TikTok and think this stuff like we're doing right now, they're fabulous, but there is nothing like going out to a honky tonk where you've never met anybody in your lifetime and having to win
Yeah.
that room, you know, win that room, or going into you know, getting an opportunity to open for somebody, you know, that's way out of your league or something, and rising to that, to you know, to win that crowd, you know. And so to me, there's still nothing like, I think that's the difference in sometimes to
Well, you
me.
see it a lot of times, man. These kids sometimes get it real fast
Sure,
on social
good
media or something
and
like that.
great for them,
Yeah,
fabulous
in
for them.
great form, but then they struggle when they get. Sometimes they
Sure,
struggle when they get
sure,
in a tough bind in front of people. They've got their one or two songs that go
sure,
viral, and then they got an hour to fill, and
sure.
it's
And
hard to work around.
as a live promoter too, you know, there was a point in time where, you know, when YouTube and all that, and then, you know, eventually TikTok, where agents and people would say, like, I've got somebody, they have 500,000 followers on, you know, on TikTok, but if you brought them to a live show, there would be nobody there. And then radio was, you know, somewhat like that. Promoters would say, this guy has a top 10 hit on the radio. but then you realize, it wasn't like, a Willie Nelson who'd been out there for 40 years making fans. This person might have had a top 10 hit, but that's when radio might have been playing to people at their desks that weren't coming out to, so same way with the radio model too. There'd be people, they say this is the next best big thing, and then you didn't see them again for a while, or ever see them again. So
you've heard of a lot of those over the years. The next big thing.
Sure.
Well, last question, man, because we will have a lot of people from Louisiana, a lot of up and comers will watch these every week and everything. And so, if you got a Louisiana kid that tells you he or she wants to say move to Nashville and do this thing, what advice would you give them?
My advice always has been since I never moved to Nashville. I always have, and I still have a love-hate relationship with Nashville. I love to be there. In fact, Clara Ray and I were driving into Nashville the other day, and she goes, "Why do you get so antsy when you come into Nashville?" I was like, "Because I love this town, and I hate this town at the same time." Because in the period of time, and never moved there, but I was there once a month or twice a month, 3 times a month, sometimes months at a time, and at this point in time, after, starting going there when I was 25 or so, I've been through like 15 different groups of people that I would get comfortable with, and then they would get pissed and move back to Texas, or, they'd home because one of the things I'm proud to see here lately is I was, and I'm going to mention this guy, Channing Wilson, who I'm a giant fan of a guy named Channing Wilson. And I watched the first episode the other night of this new Keith Urban thing, The Road. And I really dig it kind of over The Voice and these other things, because they're putting seasoned people. People have been playing, some people 5 years, some people like Channing, 25 years,
Wow.
And, and putting them in a road situation and letting them play for honky tonk, and that kind of stuff. And so, Channing is one of those guys I've been watching since he moved to Nashville 10, 12 years ago. And those judges said it right at the end of it. It's almost like we just heard somebody we should have known 10 years ago, or it's like we heard some classic country artist just render a song. It's like we just heard Billy Joe Shaver again, So, I always tell people I would rather see you move to Nashville after you gather a following, so that you have something in your back pocket, so that, if you, conversations like that right now going on with several people that I've produced records for, don't jump on the first thing they hand you. Own your own masters, own your own songs, own your own things, so they can't be taken away from you, and or so that years from now you realize you don't own them and you can't get them.
A lot of kids up and coming don't think about those things.
Well, and you also have to think that this is a short, you got to get stuff while you can get it, because it's a short-lived, there's another wave of people coming behind you, but I think at some point in time, you also have to tell yourself, why are you doing this? Are you doing this to achieve some sort of fame, or are you doing this because it's called you to do it? And, I think I'm in that category. I couldn't stop doing it. And, I definitely couldn't stop doing it now because it pays my bills. And but it feeds my soul, and I just can't stop doing it. Can't stop playing. So
yeah. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on tonight, man. It's I like to keep it around an hour, just out of respect for everybody. But I appreciate you sticking around a little bit longer with me tonight.
Sure. Whatever you need.
Enjoying the stories.
I love when
thank you for your time. Enjoyed the stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll have to come up. I'll have to get up to Ruston here soon, man. And
love for you too, and I'd love to come down. I hadn't played Natchez in a long time. I'd like to come down, play in that area down there some. I was through there Sunday and Monday, and of course I had to stop at Fat Mama's and load up on tamales and and the things I do when I'm in Natchez.
Well, you got my number now, so
Sure.
shoot me a
Sure.
text next time you roll through,
Yes, sir.
and we'll be in touch, man. I'll see you here soon.
I appreciate you.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
All right. All right, guys. Man, I can sit here and do this. I told y'all last week this is the best job in the world, and I truly believe that. Getting to talk to guys and hearing these stories every Tuesday night doesn't get any better than that. But hope you enjoyed the show tonight. If so, make sure to tune in every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. Again, make sure to follow, like, share, comment, and help us show the world what Louisiana country music and our artists are all about. Just thank you guys for tuning in. God bless everybody out there, all of our Louisiana folks. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you next Tuesday night right here on Louisiana Country Music Live.